Hey, Jim Dandy here to the rescue. To rescue you from the nonsense about what a virus is and what it is not. About 10 years ago, Dr. Paul Offit wrote a book titled How the Anti-Vaccination Movement Threatens Us All. So I called him. I asked Dr. Offit, what is alive in the vaccines? He said the virus. I then asked him what he had to do with vaccines. He said he made the strains. We ended the conversation. I called him back about 3 or 4 months later. But first, let me explain what a virus is. A virus strain is the source of the poison. The source of the poison. The word virus is from Latin and means poison, like in snake venom. The polio virus is taken from the brain and spinal cord of a person who died of polio. They took the product of the disease, not the cause. Edward Jenner took the pus from a person with smallpox, injected the pus into the belly of a cow, and took the cow pus and injected it into a human and said, now you are immune for life. Edward Jenner took the product of disease, not the cause. What was Jenner's virus? It was the pus of a smallpox victim. This was a belief that the product of disease would prevent disease. This nonsense actually had a name. It was a false branch of science that was actually taught in medical schools in the 1800s. A doctor by the name of Joseph Lux coined the word in 1823 as a tribute to Edward Jenner, who died in 1823. He called it isopathy, I-S-O-P-A-T-H-Y, which means the product of disease will prevent disease. So listen to Dr. Offit straight from the mouth of a master deceiver and liar.
Hi, can I be connected with Dr. Offit?
Sorry?
Can I be connected with Dr. Offit? I thought I had his number.
Is it Offit?
Offit? Paul Offit?
One moment. Hold for your transfer.
Hi, Dr. Offit?
Yes.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. You know, I just finished reading your book, and I had a question for you, if I may.
Sure.
I talked to you one time a while back, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, and as I recall that conversation, I believe you said you actually took patients.
Patients?
Yeah, you saw patients.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you said you created the vaccines, the virus, created the vaccines, or the strains, rather?
I'm the co-inventor of the rotavirus vaccine.
Yeah, I remember in your book you said that. But yeah, you said you created the strains, that's what it was. So those things are right, those 2 points?
That's right.
Okay, my question is, how do you do that? How do you create a strain?
Well, in the case of the rotavirus vaccine, I mean, all mammals on the face of the earth have their own strains. Their sort of species barriers are high. So although, for example, rotavirus strains cause disease in calves, they don't really cause disease in humans and vice versa. So we had an attenuated or weakened virus, and then it was a matter of just reassorting in the human genes that, that coded for the proteins that evoke protective responses.
Oh, I guess the trouble I'm having with this virus thing is, what is it that's alive in a live virus vaccine?
The virus.
The virus. Well, where does that come from? I mean, does that come from a source or something?
Yeah, in this case, we all have viruses. I mean, all mammals have viruses. Humans, cows, That's where you get it from. You just purify it.
Yeah, I just, I study this stuff just in my spare time. And when they talk about this, I see where you use an electron microscope to see your pictures of your viruses.
Right.
And yet that electron microscope says that basically anything seen under that is dead. So my common sense says, well, how is it alive if it's only seen when it's dead?
Well, I guess the way that you can tell, I mean, live is probably a relative term. It's live in the sense that if you take a virus that's live and you infect the cell with it, it's for every basically one virus that enters the cell, you get 50 to 100 viruses out. In other words, it reproduces itself in the cell. If a virus is dead, then it doesn't reproduce itself in the cell.
Yeah, but how would you know that it was alive if you don't see it?
You know it's alive because it reproduces itself in the cell and kills the cell.
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is in the cell, you can't see it inside the cell reproducing, though, can you?
You can with an electron microscope.
Okay, but that's only seeing something that would be inactive?
Well, the way you do electron microscopy is probably hard to keep the virus alive, but you know that it's reproducing itself, therefore it's alive. You know it's reproducing itself because you can get more viruses out than you put in.
Well, then how do you weaken it?
You weaken it, you can do it in many ways. You can weaken it by serial pathogen cell culture. You can weaken it by using a non-human virus.
Some of this stuff gets a little over my head.
So you may want to take a look. I wrote a book called Vaccinated, One Man's Quest to Defeat the World's Deadliest Diseases, where I go through this in some depth. That may help you.
Okay. When they call the virus a particle, well, what is a particle of?
It's a particle of virus.
Of a virus. Well, I guess maybe the question I'm trying to figure out here is, what is the source of the virus?
It depends. I mean, in the cases that feel like we're talking in circles here, the source of the virus in the case of the rotavirus vaccine was calf and human.
Okay, so it comes from a calf or a human.
Right.
So you take a part of that person or calf that's diseased?
No, and in the case of, it depends what, you can use serum, you can use stool, you can use blood, it depends on where the virus is reproducing itself.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, it's just really confusing because it just seems like when it says it's dead, and how does it come alive, and how does anybody know it's alive?
Well, it's funny. We think of things, bacteria, as being alive because they can reproduce themselves, say, on surfaces like furniture. Viruses can't do that. Viruses can only reproduce themselves in cells. So the question is, they require the cellular machinery to reproduce themselves. So you can argue maybe they aren't alive. Maybe they're only alive to the degree to which they can find a cell.
So the cell has to take the virus in because the virus can't move on its own?
Can't reproduce on its own. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it can't even move on its own according to what that biology book said. So the cell must take the virus into itself?
Right.
And then destroy itself.
Well, not necessarily. Some viruses just bud out of cells, like influenza. So the cell can still be alive.
Oh.
But, take a look at this book. Unfortunately, I have a meeting in about 2 minutes, so I need to go to that. But take a look at this other book. Maybe that'll help you, and hope that works out.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
And there you have it. Listen to this as many times as you need to understand the bullshit. The medical mumbo jumbo at its finest. Lies, lies, and my truth. Isopathy at its best. The product of disease will prevent disease. When pigs fly, dandy out.